Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope that you're having a great day because we have a great show planned for you, where today on the show we have the one, the only, Mr. Ralph Bond, International Man of Mystery, where he is our science and tech trends correspondent. And if you ever needed a day where you just need to hear good things about technology, you know, things that technology can do for you, then hey, this is going to be a great one for you. So everyone sit back, relax, and we're going to get started with Ralph Bond in just a moment. But until then, a couple of things, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything from the show notes, cheat sheet, all the sources for everything, just to show you that we're not making this up. And yeah, you can find that right there on our website. Also, be sure to check out the social media contest brought to you by Logitech, and why not the chat room as well as the video portion over at twitch.tv/Computer America. Join us there. We'd love to hear from you. Now, all that being said, why don't we go ahead, just jump right into this. And if you are out there watching the video portion, about now, you can actually see Ralph Bond as we're talking to him. So help me welcome him back onto the program. He's been a long-time correspondent and happy to have him here. Ralph, how you doing? Oh.
Say great for a Friday.
Perfect. You know, and actually you said unmuted and I was like, oh wait, I have him muted. So they actually didn't even hear you saying unmuted.
No, I was muted on my side too as a double safety.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and I had you muted on my end, so that's great. But yeah, so you're coming in loud and clear. Happy
Right.
that you could be here. How have you been?
I've been doing great, and I just want to do a shout out to the folks in California that are suffering in those two terrible fires. My brother-in-law's sister, her husband, and their respective sons and families all had to evacuate from Paradise, California, and Durham, California, which is a suburb of Chico, California. So they don't even know at this moment the status of their homes. So, you know, prayers and thoughts for those folks. And then, of course, the people in Thousand Oaks. How awful to have that shooting and then followed by this terrible fire. Someday, I hope massive, amazing drones can help us fight fires and throw more technology at solving the problem of fighting these horrible wildfires. Gosh.
I mean, and of course, you know, same message here, but I will say that I believe drones are being used. I'm hoping that one day drones are powerful enough that they can airlift people out of there, you know, out of harm's way.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
I think currently drones are being used to, you know, kind of monitor the front lines of a fire, because, you know, when you're just standing there, it's hard to really imagine where the fire is, where it's coming from, and drones are actually being very useful right now. So tech, it's horrible things, but technology in a lot of ways is helping us deal with it. So
that's true. And Ben, one thing I loved what you said earlier is if you're looking for take a breath away and take a time out from all the negative, horrible stuff going on in the world and spend this time with you and me talking about some uplifting, exciting technology and science trends. You're so right. It's such a joy for me to find these stories and share them.
Absolutely. So before we even get started on the stories, which everyone, if you're watching the video portion, we're going to have them up there. Sometimes there are relevant videos, so it really helps in that regard. But everything's going to be sourced right there for later convenience. I will say, though, that before we get started, why don't you go ahead and give the people a little bit of a background on yourself?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I'm an oldster. 66 seasoned years old now, but I started out in the computer industry as a tech writer for a mini computer company in Orange County, California, before the IBM PC came out. But back when I got into the business, it was all hobbyists. And then, of course, the Apple revolution started getting things going. And then I got my first job out of college as a tech writer for an outfit called Computer Automation in Orange County. Then I got picked up by a public relations and advertising firm that specialized in covering only really high technology companies. And then I got recruited to be the PR and communications manager for Rockwell Semiconductors in Orange County, California. They at that time were the world's leader of facsimile chips for the Japanese and Asian markets, worldwide fax machine markets. They were the early darlings of the American semiconductor industry, the great hope, as Intel was just beginning to really come up to speed in many regards. And then, several other jobs in technology, and then wound up working for Intel Corporation up here in Oregon, where I live, for almost 14 wonderful years. Sad to say I was laid off with 10,500 other people in October of 2006. But then, happy ending to my story, I rolled over and was able to work for Autodesk, the AutoCAD company, computer-aided design software company, for the last 10 and a half years of my active career. And just it was such a high note to end my career, full-time career, but I'm still dabbling around doing podcast production for people and other things like that. So I still have my finger in the pie, and of course, doing the correspondence here for science and technology trends for the wonderful Computer America show. So there's me in a snapshot.
There you go. No, very, very, very explanatory. And by the way, I hope everyone out there is feeling good about themselves, because we've had a lot of very interesting guests over these past couple of weeks, and coming up that we actually had Intel on the show. I believe that was last Friday. So it was fun to talk to Intel. We had AMD, we had TIFCA, IBM. We've been having a lot of great interviews. So I don't know why I felt like throwing that there. You said Intel. I was like, oh, we just talked to them. But okay, either way, thank you for joining us once again. Why don't we go ahead and get started with these stories? And story number one, I think this is one that we were chatting about. And this one really, more than any other, is like I told you, before we started, that this is a concept that it'd be like if someone said to you, hey, Ben, they made a lightsaber and it really works and it really makes the weird noises and it really chops people's arms off. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. This is the same kind of thing. Like it's so fantastic that you can't imagine it's real, but check this out.
Well, yeah. And in fact, you educated me before we got on the air live here about the origins or the home for this idea in science fiction. But let me set up the story, and then I'd love to have you share with audience. Some people in the audience like me don't realize how much this has been an idea played around with in science fiction. But here's the story, folks. Headline is, a colossal elevator to space could be going up sooner than you ever imagined. It's a story from NBC News, the MACH mock site, a story by Scott Snowden. And of course, as Ben was saying, if you go out to our show's website, get the show notes, we call them, or cheat notes, you'll have the links, the pictures, the image, the art image for this story is gorgeous. I love it. Anyway, so here, let's dive into the story. For more than half a century, rockets have been the only way to go to space. But in the not-too-distant future, we may have another option for sending up people and payloads. A colossal elevator extending from the Earth's surface up to an altitude of 22,000 miles where geosynchronous satellites orbit. Wow. NASA says the basic concept of a space elevator is sound, and researchers around the world are optimistic that one can be built. The Obayashi Corporation, a global construction firm based in Tokyo, has said that it will build one by 2050. And China wants to build one as soon as 2045. So not too distant future in a way. That's true. I hope I'm still around. I'd love to see this. And again, I'm going to stop for a second. Share with the audience your comments to me offline about how this has its place in science fiction lore.
I actually just had to Google it just to see when the first one actually happened, because I think Isaac Asimov, as I was saying, Isaac Asimov might have been one to actually use this theory as well. But actually, a gentleman named Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. Hey, you mess up names, I mess up names. It's what we do here. We love doing it. But he was a Russian physicist, and just back in 1895. This is over 120 years in the thinking, and we might actually get one. It's crazy to think that someone imagined something before 1900, and we might actually be able to build one within the next 30 years.
Oh, yeah, it's great. And then picking up on the story, in fact, the scientist you just referenced is in this story as well.
Okay.
So it says, now an experiment to be conducted soon aboard the International Space Station will help determine the real-world feasibility of a space elevator. And here comes a quote. It says, the space elevator is the holy grail of space exploration, says Mikao Katu, a professor
Michio
of
Kaku. He's the
Michio.
he's the guy. Like, he's on like the Science Channel. He's on all
Yeah.
of the CNN stuff like that. He's the silver-haired astrophysicist who's always like, and this he's like Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of role. He excites the
Yeah.
public. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so he's, of course, as you just very aptly positioned who he is, professor of physics at City College of New York and noted futurist. And he goes on to say, imagine pushing the up button of an elevator and taking a ride into the heavens. It could open up space to the average person. So cool, right? He goes on to say, Katu isn't exaggerating. And am I saying his last name properly? Katu? Is that
Michio Kaku.
Kaku. Okay, thank you. Kaku isn't exaggerating. A space elevator would be the single largest engineering project ever undertaken and could cost close to $10 billion to build. But it could reduce the cost of putting things into orbit from roughly $3,500 per pound today to as little as $25 per pound, says Peter Swan, president of the International Space Elevator Consortium, acronym, of course, ISEC, based in Santa Ana, California. And if you want to go check out their website, it's real simple. It's isec.org. Okay? Mm-hmm. You can go get this. And then you mentioned this scientist before. The idea for a space elevator was
let's
first
see you say this name.
In 1895 by Konstantin Tsiolkovsky.
Perfect.
Good shot. Try Tsiolkovsky. Tsiolkovsky.
Tsiolkovsky. Let's go.
Okay,
Tsiolkovsky.
let's go with that. That sounds good. A Russian scientist who did pioneering work in rocketry. So you made reference to him too, based on your search. As commonly conceived today, a space elevator would consist of motorized elevator pods that are powered up and down a ground-to-space tether. The tether would stretch from a spacecraft, from a spaceport at the equator to a space station in geosynchronous orbit overhead. Centrifugal forces caused by the Earth's rotation would hold the tether aloft. But just even getting the tether I wish we had a physicist, and maybe you can give some thoughts on this too, Ben. How do you even just make this? So you make a 22,000 mile long tether of some sort.
Right.
I mean, how do you just get it into position to begin with? I get it once it's installed, the forces would make it work and so forth. I get that.
Right.
But how do you just make it happen to begin with? That's the thing I don't get.
The super hard thing would be, and obviously I would imagine you would want to have something tethered to the ground, a massive spool of some kind of cable that you could send up already, and then connect the two in the middle somehow. Instead of trying to, throw something high enough in the air to, kind of make it work. But I think that exact hurdle that you're talking about, like the idea of an elevator, that's been around for a while. Elevators work. No one's arguing that. It's just that logistics that you're actually pointing to, I think, is the main problem with, getting this installed in the first place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's part. I mean, what are we going to have a rocket ship on the Earth? With a giant fishing rod reel of pulled up stuff.
I'm just imagining cartoons and Wile E. Coyote ties a rope to his ankle and he jumps off and you see it kind of unspooling. That with a giant rocket, I'd assume. But but at the same time, it really does make a lot of sense because instead of having to use a rocket to propel something into space, it just kind of ferries something along. And
clearly would be fantastic.
And I'm going to let you finish this, and then I have kind of one more thought about this, but please go on.
Yeah, so it says the ISS Experiment, dubbed, of course, it's going to have its own acronym. Get ready: Space Tethered Autonomous Robotic Satellite Mini Elevator, or STARS-ME, was devised by physicists from Japan's Shizuoka. Shizuoka University. It will simulate on a small scale the conditions that the components of such a system would encounter. Cameras will examine the movement of a pair of tiny CubeSats along a 10-meter tether in a weightless environment. So they're going to do this experiment. That's the real kernel or the reason for this story is to report the news that this experiment's going to take place pretty soon. Here comes a quote. It says, "It's going to be the world's first experiment to test elevator movement in space," a spokesman for the university told Agence France Presse, a French press news agency.
Right.
Then it goes on to say, "A steel tether to be used in the experiment is too heavy to be used as a full-size space elevator, which must, of course, extend for tens of thousands of miles. But a growing number of scientists, including Kaku, now believe that an ultra-strong carbon-based material known as, guess what, graphene, could just be the material needed." Now, once again, we've had a long-standing kind of wink and nod about graphene. I mean, yes, it's a fascinating material, and people have speculated about all kinds of things. But I think if I recall, Ben, in the past, many times you rightly said, where's the beef? You know, where's the real world delivery of a lot of this stuff? So
so far, graphene is promised, and just off the top of my head, it has promised to revolutionize batteries. It has promised to revolutionize cars, rockets, medical marriages, medical supplies. Really, it's promised to revolutionize everything. But hey, it's just it exists, and don't get me wrong, it exists. It's possible to make it. It's just so darn expensive that it's prohibitive.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I mean, this is a qualifier to this story. On paper, here comes a quote from Kaku. "On paper, it has the tensile strength to keep the space elevator anchored to the ground," Kaku says of graphene, "which ounce for ounce is 200 times stronger than steel." So the basic fundamentals are there. It's just, as you say, producing it in an economical way and producing it at the scale we're talking about. But here we go. "Small lengths of graphene are commercially available, but they're too short to be used to make a space elevator tether." Here comes a quote. "What we really need is graphene produced in a very long lengths of continuous steel," says Adrian Nixon, director of Nixor, a firm in Manchester, England, that is working to develop such a product. "That can't be done yet," he says, adding it will be possible in the very near future. So there's your qualifier. Going on with the story here, I know this is a bit of a long story, but I thought it was so interesting it was worth bringing to the audience. "Of course, making a suitable tether is just one hurdle that must be overcome. Another is, ding, 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 space debris. Bits and pieces of rockets and spacecraft that orbit the Earth and could damage or destroy the space elevator if they smash into it. Duh. Quote, avoiding space debris is not like playing dodgeball, says Michael Fitzgerald, director and chair for architectures at ISEC. That's, again, the organization putting this idea forward. There isn't a member of our team that doesn't wonder about the problem, he adds. Scientists remain optimistic, however. Quote, with proper knowledge and good operational procedures, the threat of space debris is not a showstopper by any means, Swan said. And efforts are now underway to find ways to reduce the amount of space debris, which includes more than 500,000 pieces of junk that are now being tracked by the Defense Department, should say, of the United States. Finally, it says here, later this year, members of the ISEC will meet with U.S. military and trade officials to discuss how space elevator trips could be carefully planned to avoid orbiting debris. Yeah, so, but I mean, it's just sort of a fun, it's definitely a fire your imagination kind of story. I'd loved it. And the fact that the Japanese and the Chinese are seriously going to try to accomplish this in 2050, 2045 respectively is, well, it's ambitious. And let's see.
And you know what's kind of fun? I of course need to look up the actual equator of the Earth, because they said it had to be on the equator. You know, it couldn't be anywhere else, to make sure that it's actually, you know, kind of geosynchronous. But so a couple of things, and yeah, it looks like the equator actually runs through, let's see, it runs through South America and I believe parts of China and maybe Japan. No, it doesn't hit Japan quite yet, but whatever. So two things here. The first one is, what would this thing look like? Like if you're standing on the ground and you're looking at this thing,
weird,
it would extend way further than you could possibly see with the human eye. What would that look like, just to see that cable go up and up and up and up and never stop? That looked really cool.
Well, yeah, and here's another thing. You're talking about space debris. How about Earth atmospheric vehicles, right? Yeah. How about terrible typhoons, hurricanes? other forces of nature that could start whipping that tether. Maybe I don't know. I mean, but it's fun that there are people seriously pursuing this, and the fact that it's going from science fiction imagination to possible serious implementation, that alone is fascinating.
So yeah, and obviously the main ingredient would be something like the Golden Gate Bridge. If you've ever seen a cross section of one of those cables, except instead of steel, you use carbon fiber. Then lots of redundancy, lots of strength, but like you said, people much smarter are taking this seriously. So I'm glad that you brought it to my attention, because it's going to open up a lot. So there's that one. Story number 2, like we were saying before, before the show started, you pulled these a couple days ago, which is perfectly fine. A lot of them we have not mentioned on the show before, but this one was actually, I guess you sent the stories, and then the day after, a gentleman from Samsung actually came out on stage and showed off a product. Actually showed off a smartphone. So I thought So I thought you'd give us kind of like a quick preview, and then we talk about why each of us finds this exciting, and then we'll go on.
Yeah, exactly. So what Ben's referring to is the second story in the show notes. Samsung says it's working on foldable laptop displays. It's from MSN, story by Tom Warren. Again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because this was such a big news item this week and covered by the show already in some respects relative to the smartphone application. Okay, so the gist of this article that I pulled up to share is to say, they're not only looking at smartphones, but also working towards bigger devices with foldable displays. And it opens up a whole new set of possibilities. So friends, what we recommend, Ben and I recommend you do, get the show notes, check this story out, look at it for yourself to kind of add to the big news this week about Samsung's plans for a foldable smartphone, and just let your imagination run wild as to what this could all lead to. I think it's pretty. Some people were talking about pocket-size, foldable Microsoft Surface type devices, for example, could be possible, and other things of this nature. So it's really exciting to see what Samsung's doing in this foldable display area.
I give it about a year before someone takes this technology and much like a laptop where normally you would have the screen and the hinge and then the keyboard, so the technology itself, like the big advancement here is that they're able to take the screen and a little section of it will work as a hinge. Like it's still a part of the screen. You can still put images on it, but it folds like a hinge. I give it about a year because we already have on-screen keyboards and we already have laptops before a laptop is just strictly one big concave curve, and the screen extends below to the keyboard and the screen itself, and you can type on the screen, and then when you want to maybe set it up horizontally or whatever, and you get a much bigger screen as like a little mini TV. I give it about a year before something like that is announced.
Well, I'll give you a thought. It's NFL football season, right? And the quarterback on their arm has all the plays. Many times they do, right? They're referencing. Well, what if he had a foldable, sculpted to the arm screen that's active, so the coach can not only have all the plays, but maybe communicate messages and stuff. I mean, wow!
And play Tetris cool. and Skype his girlfriend. Yeah,
do instant replays of how he screwed up in the last play or something like that. Don't do this again.
but really, again, the big announcement here, I think that a lot of people have is that you now have this. It's not that you can crumple up a screen in your hand like a piece of paper, but rather it's you can fold, like you said, mold a display that can move a little bit, and that, don't get me wrong, that's a pretty big announcement. So I'm excited to see.
It is.
I'm not too excited about the phone personally. I don't know if you saw the announcement.
Yeah,
but,
I'm with you. It's interesting. It's important as a technology step. Let's put it that way, in my opinion. And I think the more exciting stuff are what it's going to mean for wearable displays and interactive displays and things of this nature. That's where I start going. Okay. A foldable, paper thin, laptop-y Surface like type of what? But that's great. That's cool. But what's to me more interesting is having this embedded into clothing for workers or for first responders, or any number of possibilities where
Tons of applications.
a rigid device is not going to be conducive to their environment and their situation. And what if you could replace that with a foldable device? That's interesting to me.
So what's and kind of what we said yesterday on the show with our other correspondent was that you look at this and like I don't know if you recall the announcement of the first iPhone. With Steve Jobs up there, everyone looked at that and went, "That's the future of phones. That is, that is what phones are going to be."
It was electrifying, yeah.
Yeah, but when he came out on stage and he unveiled this foldable phone, I think a lot of people sat back and said, "That's cool. I wonder how that's going to work. How we're going to see that evolve." So, it's not going to replace everything overnight, but at the same time, it's kind of a wait and see. I wonder what's going to happen. So that's that story. Yeah, that's that story. Great article here you included in the show notes, and hey, I'm sure that we will be talking about it again here eventually. Let's see. So story number 3, and just looking at this thing, robots, I guess they take a couple forms. So when you think of a robot, maybe you think of Boston Dynamics, where it's kind of human-esque and it can do human things, or maybe
the dog.
or the dog-like robot, or maybe Rosie from the Jetsons, but or even like robot arms. But robots are going to come in a lot of different forms, and this story really captures that.
Absolutely. This comes from CNET, a story by Mark Sorrells. And the headline, now this is a very tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. I don't know whether Mark, the author, is seriously being negative or harsh, or if he's kind of having tongue-in-cheek fun with this. But the headline is, "Scientists built a terrifying robot snake that can climb ladders. Snakes and ladders used to be a board game. Now it's an integral part of our shared robot dystopian future. Can't wait." It's a very curious headline. If you see the video, friends, be sure to check out the video.
Yeah, we're going to watch that. So
wonderful. I think it's really interesting. But let's get into the story here. And again, tongue-in-cheek kind of tone to this. We tend to oversell the scariness of robots, right? The Boston Dynamics robot does a backflip or parkour, and we're cracking jokes about the revolution and our potential robot overlords. But honestly, how bad could it be? How about robot snakes that have learned how to climb up ladders? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Again, I wish I could kind of know where he's coming from, but it's still this development in robotics is interesting. So see the video, and then it says the above abomination. He's got to be kidding. Is the creation of Kyoto University and the University of Electrocommunications in Japan.
I see where he's coming from, because we're watching the video right now, and when he says abomination, you look at this thing and it's
freaky.
It's like we call it a robot, but what it's doing is not robotic. It is very, very animate.
Yeah, it's freaky and it is creepy, but later I'll share with you where I think it's, and the article alludes to this too, why it's so important, I think. Goes on to say it was unveiled last week. This story, by the way, is posted October 14th, so last month. It was unveiled last week at the 2018 IEEE RSJ International Conference on Intelligent Robots and Systems, the motto of that conference, Towards a Robotic Society. Now, he goes on, the author says, toward a dystopian future where humankind is under assault from armies of parkour robots and ladder-climbing snakes. Okay. Here's something.
He's definitely trying to have fun with it. The author's definitely trying to have fun with it.
I think it's more that. I don't think he's really dissing. I think he's just having tongue-in-cheek fun. Yeah. And then from the team that developed this snake ladder-climbing robot, there's a extract from their abstract. It says, we propose a ladder climbing method for a snake robot that has a smooth surface shape. We design a novel gait for the snake using a gait design method that configures the target form of the snake robot by connecting simple shapes. Look closely at the video, friends. You'll see what they're talking about. The climbing motion is executed via shift control and the corresponding motion required to catch the next step on the ladder. And then after that quote, the author goes, sounds great. The idea is this robot will be able to access spaces humans can't. Ding, ding, ding. That's the importance, particularly during disaster situations with broken down buildings and whatnot. You can find out more here, and there's a link embedded in the story. So that's the payoff here. All the little jokes and tongue-in-cheek aside, anything. Can you imagine this thing being able to snake its way into rubble and debris to find and help locate trapped people? Or, I mean, to me, this is the payoff. This is the thing that makes me so excited about this particular development in robotics.
So, and there was an AI program that I saw a little while ago that it worked for, like essentially you create the robot in 3D, with Autodesk, you definitely know how that goes.
Right.
And essentially the scientists just gave it the job of move as fast as possible, and it learned to walk on itself. They didn't teach it how to walk, it learned to walk. And I'm thinking the same kind of application, but for this. But Ralph, I will say, music in the background. Everyone, we'll be right back. More computer and technology news, more Ralph Bond, more everything. We'll be right back. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, if you're just joining us, we've been talking with Ralph Bond this entire time. And you can, of course, check out the show in podcast form wherever podcasts are heard. And it's just today's show. So if you missed any of it, don't worry. Listen to us at your convenience. And Ralph, thank you for continuing on. And we just finished with the colonoscopy bot. And this... they never said it was for that purpose, folks. I am completely joking. This is a snaking robot that can work its way into areas where humans can't. More specifically designed for search and rescue or just other applications. Like I believe someone in the comment section of the YouTube video was like, "Wow, I wonder if they're going to send this for secret chambers in Egypt with the things like that." So obviously exploration that would otherwise be impossible. This is your guy.
Well, yeah, and think about geology too. These weird caverns and places that may be inaccessible to human beings, and you could send these little guys in to do that. That's great thinking. That's one of the things I love. This from working with me, Ben, for a number of years, is I like the possibilities, the potentials, the implications, like the foldable display. Well, the phone itself is one thing, but what could it do here? What could it do there? And this robot, this kind of snaky robot that has these abilities, what could it do? Could it be used here? Could it be that's the thing that excites me the most about these kinds of stories.
Absolutely. And obviously we can wax about that, but in traditional Computer America fashion, even though we skipped primarily story number 2, so I will say we're about 2.5 stories in, and half the show's gone. So let's go ahead, keep this moving, and we're going to jump right into, and it's weird, like whenever MIT comes up, that's just a headline getter, and you definitely enjoy the stories from there. It's always fun to see what their departments are working on, but MIT and of course artificial and cancer seem to be going hand in hand. Talk about this one and what they're able to do now.
Yes, and like you say, anytime I see MIT and AI in the same sentence, it catches my attention. So here's the headline: MIT's AI can identify breast cancer risk as reliably as a radiologist. The deep learning model accurately assesses dense breast tissue. Now, this is a story in Engadget, story by Rachel England. And as you know, I have a real soft spot in my heart for any medical technology advancement stories and so forth. I think this is so critically important. And of course, needless to say, breast cancer is a hugely important topic. Let's get into the story. It says, breast cancer affects 1 in 8 women in the United States. There are multiple factors involved in developing the disease, but one issue is dense breast tissue. Some 40% of U.S. women have dense breast tissue, which alone increases the risk of breast cancer and can make mammogram screening more difficult. There's the key. With this condition, the dense breast tissue, mammograms, it's hard for the screening. That was the problem. Here comes this possible solution. It goes on to say, now, researchers from MIT and Massachusetts General Hospital have developed an automated model that assesses dense breast tissue in mammograms as reliably as expert radiologists. Wow. Okay. You've already, through technology, democratized this expertise, right? That's a huge implication. Goes on to say, breast density assessments have traditionally relied on subjective human exams and calculations, but the deep learning model, trained on tens of thousands of digital mammograms, is able to distinguish different types of breast tissue from fatty to extremely dense with 90% correlation to a radiologist's diagnosis. That's pretty amazing if you just stop and think about that. Goes on to say, in comparison to traditional prediction models, the researchers used a metric called a Kappa Score, where 1 indicates the model and the human experts agree on a diagnosis every time, and anything lower indicates fewer instances of agreements. The maximum Kappa score for existing automatic density assessment models is around 0.6. In the clinical application, the new model scored 0.85, meaning it makes better predictions than previous systems. So this AI advancement from MIT is getting that kind of performance level. And here comes a quote from one of the researchers. Breast density is an independent risk factor that drives how we communicate with women about their cancer risk. Our motivation was to create an accurate and consistent tool that can be shared and used across healthcare systems, says MIT PhD student and second author on the model's paper, Adam Yala. He goes on to say, it takes less than a second per image and can be easily and cheaply scaled throughout hospitals. Less than a second. Wow. It concludes, the researchers now plan on exploring how the algorithm can be transitioned into other hospitals and how it can be used in other healthcare applications, right? Yep. So it's not just for the breast density issue, but for other possibilities as well. So I love it. I love this kind of story.
It's right up there with robots that do surgery. It's right up there with robots that identify cataracts and and other things like that. It's not like the goal isn't to completely push the doctor out of the equation.
No, of course not.
It's to instead of the doctor looking at all these images, the AI would flag instead of, let's say, 200 images of cross section, it would flag 13 images and say these images look a little suspicious. There's a high chance of it being cancer. Double check. And
double check, right?
Yeah, and it saves the doctor's time because they don't have to look through it.
Yep.
Doctors themselves are fallible, so it's kind of like an immediate second opinion. And it's not going to be foolproof, but it's going to be better than what we have, and that's really important.
Well, and I think again, that's you talked about democratizing examinations. Because if you think about a growing world population and especially areas of the world where there might be very, very limited medical resources and so forth, having this capability could help democratize the opportunity for women to be examined and with accuracy. Is it the answer to everything? Does it replace the doctor? Of course not, but it's going to help in so many interesting ways, I predict. I thought that was just such an important point in this story.
Yep, and very, very cool that they're able to transition it from other forms of cancer to breast cancer. So makes perfect sense. Let's see. And hey, it seems like we're on an AI robotic kick this week, so I'm perfectly happy with that. And this is why, if you read the show notes, today's title, let's see, I believe today's title was like Ralph Bond, Science and Tech Trends, and it had to do with space elevators, and the second one, I believe, was Smelly robots. And hey, this is it. So talk about perfume. You'd think that's something so subjective and something so human, but hey, AI might help here.
Yes, AI machine learning. Here it comes. This is also from Engadget, a story by Imad Khan, and the headline is what got my attention. AI might concoct your next perfume? Okay. I mean, as you allude to, Ben, all of our lives we think of the people who make perfumes as being these incredibly expert people who are like wine experts and so on. They with their nose, they're figuring out different bizarre combinations.
In some ways, even artistic, because perfumes, things like that, they're expressions of them. They're like, hey, this is our go out early in the evening and you want to have fun and part, and like they're like, oh, you want citrus and this, like. It's very, kind of human touch to it, but hey.
Yeah. So here's the story. It says, perfumers look out. IBM Research partnered up with one of the top producers of flavors and fragrances, an outfit called Symrise, Symrisc, to create a perfume concocting AI.
Yeah, and before we go any further, I will say that our interview with IBM is actually an interview with IBM Research. Their research arm is so spread out because our conversation revolved around things like call centers and video games. Like they would record your voice, analyze your voice, and not just do speech to text, but to actually pick up on intonation and feelings and emotions that you say, so that AI can actually analyze your emotions as you're saying words. And like that's a completely separate kind of IBM research as opposed to perfume concocting. Their research arm is just doing crazy things. So, but
you're right. IBM Research is really, really fascinating. And salute to them on this. And then I'm going to take a shot at pronouncing this. Named Philyra. It's Phillyra. After, and the notes say greed. It should be Greek. That was a mistake in the article. After the Greek goddess of fragrance. So Philyra, I'll just butcher it that way. It uses machine learning to sift through thousands of ingredients, formulas, and industry trends to derive what IBM considers to be unique combinations. IBM is leveraging the AI to help perfumers design the next great scent rather than a machine that will replace experts of the human nose. Philyra looks at thousands of formulas and raw materials to identify patterns and new combinations to find a potential gap in the market and fill it with a new scent. So it's more than just, taking different ingredients and saying, well, what if we did this? No, it's also adding in the trends and where there's maybe potential gaps in the market as to what scents might be attractive to consumers. It goes on to say it finds alternative raw materials, deduces the dosage based on human usage patterns and how humans tend to respond before comparing it to existing fragrances. This wide sweep, instant analysis can either really help perfumers or give them a run for their money. And goes on to say Philyra Filera is currently working on 2 perfumes that are set to launch in mid-2019 for Brazilian brand O Boticario. I'm butchering that too, I'm sure. Both fragrances were tweaked slightly by a master perfumer to ensure a certain note was emphasized and that it stuck to the skin long enough. Simrise also plans to distribute this technology to its master perfumers around the world and to its perfumery school to help train students. I'm going to stop for a second because in the previous story we talked about the technology that MIT has for looking at dense breast tissue, and we talked about it's not replacing the doctor, but giving the doctor a great initial input, right?
Yeah,
great tool, and then the expert can tweak and nuance. That's what's going on here in this perfume story. They're not saying the perfumer or the expert goes away. It's just that this AI program could bring something to the expert and say, what do you think of this? And the expert might say, if we just ratchet this a little bit more, I think it might work.
Yeah, and before you finish up the story, I will say that one thing that every time we have a company on that talks about AI, machine learning, whatever, one very important thing needs to be pointed out is that all the AI that we talk about here today, it's only as good as the data that you put into it. So I believe you actually have another story here that we might not get to, but it's about could AI robots develop prejudice on their own? I haven't read that one completely, but I think that one goes along the lines of if the data itself has prejudice, then any resulting AI coming from the data will have that as well. It's just a matter of the data. So perfume and an AI that does perfume, it's only as good as the data that it has. It's not perfect, but yeah.
Well, like the old days, we used to say garbage in, garbage out.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So to finish this up real quick, it says, but beyond making you smell better, IBM believes that technology can aid in other uses, like flavors, cosmetic adhesives, lubricants, and construction materials. That's intriguing. I'd like to learn more about that. Considering that AIs are already beating humans in the game Go, .A2, and reading tests, it's only a matter of time before robots will be winning baking and fragrance competitions. That's sort of fun.
Grandma's apple pie has been replaced by AI's apple pie. That's certainly something. And yeah, the AI winning in Go was definitely a big achievement. The whole thing with Dota 2, that was a little bit less so, but it was cool either way. And reading tests, but AI, if there's the theme that is today's show, it's that AI is coming, and it's in some cases already here. So very nice. Let's see. So we have about 12, 15 minutes. I guess we could do maybe one, maybe two. I don't know if you had some favorites in here.
I actually kind of like this next one if we made story 6.
Sure. Let's do story 6. Really cool. And then I also referenced in the title of today's show, I also referenced story 8. So let's do 6 and then 8, and then we'll see where we are there.
Okay, let's see how far we can get here. So story 6 is, the headline is a GPS for inside your body. Wireless system suggests future where doctors could implant sensors to track tumors or even dispense drugs. Comes from Science Daily, and this is from an announcement released by MIA, or pardon me, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, excuse me. Yeah. In specific, their CSAIL team. And let's get right into the story. It says, medical processes like imaging often require cutting someone open or making them swallow huge tubes with cameras on them. I've been there and done that. Both ends of the body, by the way. But what if you could get the same results with methods that are less expensive, invasive and time-consuming? Yes,
I'm just saying I hope that they washed it between uses. But go ahead.
Yes, I'm sure they do. And that adds to the cost as well. Researchers from MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, CSAIL, led by Professor Dina Katabi, are working on exactly that with something called Remix, that's REMIX, a system that they describe as in-body GPS. Well, you can just imagine. This really got my attention. Remix can pinpoint the location of ingestible implants inside the body using low-power wireless signals. In animal tests, the team demonstrated that they can track implants with centimeter-level accuracy and said that one day, similar implants could be used to deliver drugs to specific regions of the body, targeted delivery, right? That's a big thing that people want to do.
I think that they have some, like I've seen commercials for, not exactly like that, but it's for cancer patients who are recovering.
Yeah.
Instead of, coming in, they have this big, kind of bulbousy thing that they have on their arm, and it will slowly inject the cancer drugs instead of having to come in. Like, that's already here. It's just not implanted. Exactly
right. So you're taking it to the next level where it goes internal in the body, plus has this ability to be tracked. And hence the internal body GPS, which I just thought was a wonderful idea. To test Remix, Katabi's group first implanted a small marker in animal tissues. To track its movement, they used a wireless device that reflects radio signals at the patient and a special algorithm to pinpoint the exact location of the marker. The team used a wireless technology that they've previously demonstrated to detect heart rate, breathing, and movement. Interestingly, the marker inside the body does not need to transmit any wireless signal. Let that sink in for a second. It simply reflects the signal transmitted by a device outside the body without needing a battery or any other external source of energy. Ding, ding, ding.
Ralph, I gotta say, I believe it was a show with you that actually you pointed out this technology maybe 8 months to 12 months ago. I don't.
Yeah, it's very similar. Right.
But you had one where it was a system on a chip, and it would actually power itself from the radio waves hitting it. Like that was its power source. So
that's right.
That same technology, now we're seeing it in a useful application.
Yeah, it's related to that, and it's another one of these incredibly exciting things going on here. And we're going to skip part of this too because it's quite a long article. It says a key challenge in using wireless signals is the many. Let me try that again. A key challenge in using wireless signals in this way is the many competing reflections that bounce off a person's body. In fact, the signals that reflect off a person's skin are actually 100 million times more powerful than the signals of the metal marker itself. To overcome this, the team designed an approach that essentially separates the interfering skin signals from the ones they're trying to measure. They did this using a small semiconductor device called a diode that can mix signals together so that the team can then filter out the skin-related signals. So let's stop here on this one. Friends, get the show notes. You can read the rest of the article. It's wonderful. And just ponder the possibilities that this in-body GPS tracking capability with markers that inside the body that don't need a power source. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's and like I was saying, it shows that these articles that we talk about today, they come back up. They come back up a year later with different kind of research. So very nice to see. But like I said, I did reference story number 8 in the show. In the title. So I want to get that because just this morning we were going to do a special segment with a guest, and we actually had to reschedule because our internet went down. I'm not saying that story number 8 is going to fix internet, but improvements in internet connectivity and improvements in internet speed, that's always relevant. So I really like this one.
Oh, yeah. This caught my eye, too. This comes from the British paper, The Guardian, right? It's a staff-written story. There's no author attributed. But the headline got my eye. A twisted fiber optic light breakthrough could make internet 100 times faster. Okay, I like that. Researchers say they have developed tiny readers that can detect information in light spirals. Okay, so this is kind of mind-bending, no pun intended. A new development in fiber optics could make internet speeds 100 times faster by detecting light that has been twisted into a spiral. The research published in the journal Nature Communications can be used to easily upgrade existing networks and significantly boost efficiency, scientists say. There's the key. Easily upgrade existing networks. Yes, okay. Fiber optic cables use pulses of light to transmit information, but currently information can only be stored through the color of the light and whether the wave is horizontal or vertical. By twisting light into a spiral, engineers effectively create a third dimension for light to carry information, the level of orbital angular momentum or spin. Wow. Here comes a quote. "It's like DNA. If you look at the double helix spiral," said Min Gu from RMIT University. "The more you can use angular momentum, the more information you can carry." This is a mind bender.
Yeah. He says that so naturally, but I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and
Yeah,
I
me
need
too.
a picture.
Yeah. Well, there's a pretty art picture for the article, but I don't think it helps.
Yeah.
Researchers in the U.S. had previously created a fiber that could twist light, but Gu's team is the first to create a reasonable size detector that can read the information it holds. Previous detectors were the size of a dining table, but the new detector, wait for it, the new detector is the width of a human hair. We could produce the first chip that could detect this twisting and display it for mobile application, Gu said. Again, Gu is the head researcher on this. The rest of it goes on for quite a ways. I think is well worth checking out. Let's see if we can pick up a couple of things. It says here the technology could be used to upgrade fiber optic networks like Australia's national broadband network, although controversy still dogs the decision to reduce the scheme's use of fiber optics in favor of copper wire. Now, what happens at this point in the article goes through and explains about this whole issue of fiber to the node, and then how copper usually takes over to the node, to the premise or the business site, right? So it's fiber in the backbone, but not all the way to the premise.
Right.
So it goes back and forth in the article about talking about, in the case of the UK and Australia and so forth, and issues about dealing with copper versus fiber in that last leg of the mission to get the connectivity into your home or into your business site. So we won't spend a whole lot of time going through that right now because it's kind of in depth and quite long. But I just think this is so interesting, mainly because the premise is we're not talking about throwing out all the fiber optics that have been laid, saying forget it. It's saying that this is a technology that could be used with existing infrastructure and make it affordable and make it possible. So, and again, getting the reader down to that kind of width of a human hair scale, where prior to this, the experimental versions have been the size of a dining table. So that kind of stuff all starts adding up, and you say to yourself, oh, okay, this could get pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, and I mean, even if it's just not applicable for the fiber that maybe connects your house to any kind of network, it could be applicable for data centers or some other high density data solution. So even if your home internet won't increase by 100-fold overnight, it could be a situation where these massive data server farms are suddenly they get 100%, 100-fold boost, and that helps everything on the back end. So
yeah, exactly.
Someone's going to figure this one out, but I will say that we have like 2 more minutes left, and that's not enough time. We have 2 stories that we didn't touch on, and if you would like, Ralph, if you could just I don't know if you could give a 2-minute gist, but story number 7 and story number 9 both have to do with AI. And do give people a taste so that if they want to check out the show notes, they're in there.
Sure. Let's just kind of give a Reader's Digest condensation. Now, that's something an old person like me knows what that means. Reader's Digest, I don't even know if they still exist or not. Do they? Anyway,
they probably do.
It's the idea of condensing articles down, so we'll try to do the same here. Story 9, the Pentagon's $2 billion gamble on artificial intelligence. I went kind of AI crazy this month with the stories. This comes from the Washington Examiner, a story by Jamie McIntyre. And what I thought was interesting, it's just interesting to hear what our military wing, DARPA, and those folks are up to, and this big push into AI, which isn't surprising in and of itself. But it says we'll give you just a couple highlights. It's a chilling plot line of every science fiction movie that robots are the future. Once they start thinking for themselves, humanity is doomed. And of course, we can immediately think of all the Skynet and all that sort of thing. These days, the Pentagon is doing a lot of thinking about the nascent scientific field of artificial intelligence, also known as machine learning, developing computer algorithms that will allow cars to drive themselves, robots to perform surgery, and even weapons to kill autonomously. Eee, that's kind of creepy. We don't have time to really do this justice. I'll give you one little quote though here. It says, "In reality, over about the last 50 years, DARPA and its research partners have led the way to establishing the field of artificial intelligence. We are not new to this game, said DARPA Director Stephen Walker at the agency's 60th anniversary symposium in September. Early artificial intelligence research perfected systems technology and later statistical learning capabilities, but the next leap in AI, and this we'll leave as the parting thought, the next leap in AI is developing what's known as the third wave, technologies focused on contextual reasoning, or what we humans call thinking. And that's where we'll stop, because I think that's really the great line from this article that really makes you stop and take a deep breath. We're all aware of AI, we're all aware of machine learning, but when do we get to the point where this can start thinking?
And I think you're right. That's a great way to, a great place to lead people is to think about thinking AI. The music playing in the background. Ralph, if people want to find out more about you and your past appearances here on Computer America, where can they go?
Super easy. Of course, come out to the show's website, computeramerica.com, or you can come out to my website. Simply point your browser to my name, Ralph Bond, and then Wix, W-I-X. It'll bring up my personal website, and then I have a tab there for all of my appearances on wonderful Computer America.
There you go. Yeah, and of course, we have a link to that in the show notes, as well as the show notes themselves. So, Ralph, until next month, we're getting really, really close to the holidays, but we'll plan it out. And thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. Always a pleasure.
All right. Have a great one, everyone. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Catch us here. Monday off, Veterans Day. We won't be on. But until then, everyone, bye-bye.